Being prepared in any negotiation is key. In contract negotiation, that means know your price. What is the price that you should be offered from the industry, from the company, from the role, from your personal value? The better you know this price, the better you can negotiate, because you know what are the limits and where should this whole negotiation go to. Prepare arguments. Why should you get delivered this price? If you ask for a higher salary, why should they give it to you? And always think about the benefits for the other side, not your own benefits.
Hi, and welcome to the TD Meetup. My name is Alexander Richter. I'm a technical director for visual effects, animation, and games, and I work at companies like Weta FX and Framestore on Avatar: The Way of Water and Monsters at Work.
We want to talk about contract negotiation. And the reason we talk about it is because it's everywhere. Everything we do, every job that we go into, always a part of getting that job is contract negotiation. It's not only if we get the job by, finding the common ground during the contract negotiation, but also how the job looks like. Do we have holidays? How is the pay? How are the conditions? So it's a very important part of every job, not only technical director, technical artist, software developer, but also artistic jobs. Because at the end of the day, the contract negotiation and the contract itself defines our stability, our happiness, our maybe future kind of salary and basic income. And since also it's at the moment a little bit harder with job finding and also maybe kind of like the money topic, I thought this was a good topic to talk about, because this not only allows us to have stronger contracts in the future if we do it right, if we understand how to do better contract negotiations in the future, it also can provide us maybe with higher income and more stability by having better contracts. And so that's why we talk about this today. Just a quick word about myself. My name is Alexander Richter. I'm a technical director in visual effects, animation, and games. And I worked at Weta FX, Mackevision, Framestore, and Avatar: The Way of Water, Shang-Chi and 10 Rings, Monsters at Work, and so on. And during my time, I also obviously talked with different studios about my contracts, about my salary, about if they provide me with the flight, with the relocation, and so on. And so one of the ways that I learned about contract negotiation is by doing it, is by negotiating my contract and finding out what's possible, what's not possible. And sometimes like should I go back? When should I push? And so I kind of provided this with a mixture of my own experience and what I learned also when I tried to educate myself through contract negotiation, because I believe this is one of the key skills in life, like knowing how to present. I think negotiation is an essential part of everything we do, not only contracts, basically. What we'll learn today is first the key principles of negotiation to help you to navigate it and to understand what that means. Negotiation confidence, because it's also important that you are not afraid of negotiation, that you embrace it and that you go into it with a certain amount of wants and confidence. Removing wrong beliefs, basically, like with interviews, a lot of people have certain mindsets of what a negotiation is, what you can do and can't do, and a lot of times they're wrong. So it's important for us to understand what is maybe something that is actually not true, and you can just ignore that. And then obviously better negotiation results, if it's money, salary, or if it's basically a better contract with more stability, longer runtime. It's all about finding what you need and then getting that. Important is to define what negotiation is. My definition of negotiation is maybe a little bit broader than the dictionary definition, but I think it is actually more accurate. So every time we try to pursue someone to do something, we enter into a negotiation. And that can be everything. Obviously, we focus more on the contract negotiation, but every form of pursuing someone to do something for us, asking basically for a favor or anything, is about negotiation. So learning this skill is essential. And one part of that is when two sides try to pursue each other to do certain things. So one side wants to hire you, give you the right environment so you can perform for them. Your side wants to have a good job, have the right balance of security and salary. And then we also need to define what is a successful negotiation, because that is what we are looking forward to. Is a successful negotiation is one in which both parties get what they need and are satisfied with the outcome. Very important, both. Because if one side is not happy, if the studio is not happy because they felt they overpaid you, obviously they will not keep you long. If you are not happy because you feel like you're underpaid, the contract isn't fair or something like that, you create a grudge and you will not stay long, or you don't do good work. So it's very important that you always see negotiation as a win-win condition, because else no one wins, because if only one side wins, it means the other side loses, basically. Okay, let's dive into the rules of negotiation. I have a bunch of rules that I found important. I compressed them down of what I normally do, for example, inside my coaching or something like that. But these are, I think, the most important ones. If you understand them, that will help you in general to deal better with future negotiation, not just for contract, but in general, if you want to pursue someone else to do something for you. A very important quote by Sun Tzu in The Art of War is, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. And that is basically also the rule number one, be prepared. It's such an essential part in interviews and negotiations to be prepared, because preparation means you understand yourself, what you're worth, what you need, what you want, and you understand the other side, what they're able to do, what they're able to pay in this case, what the contract there can go into. So the key in contract, for example, is obviously salary. It's to know the industry standard. For example, if you are in London, what is the industry standard in your position? If you're in LA, what is the industry standard there? If you're in Mumbai, what is the industry standard there? That is very important, because then from there you can go as the guideline. Then obviously, what is the company standard? Just because there is an industry standard doesn't mean the company pays the same. Oftentimes the company can pay higher because, for example, it's a company that is like DNEG or ILM or something. They are on the highest level, so they have to pay higher because they want to hire the best people. And so both are very important. And there's different methods how to find them. Industry standard, you can look around online. What are the offerings, the applications, Glassdoor, and so on. Company standard, a little more difficult. You probably will need to reach out to people. Maybe you have connections to people who work there. Maybe you can ask some people like, hey, what's the range? But it's very important to take the work and find the salary, because it's probably the most important part of any contract negotiation. Then it's important to know about your own needs, especially when it comes to expenses. If you move to something like London, which is a very expensive city, or LA, then your expenses could be bigger. So it's always important to know your needs, so you understand, okay, this is what we will talk later. This is my minimum. So the more you know your expenses, the better you can understand how much excluding salary you need. So you cannot underbid that one. Maybe you want something like relocation. Maybe you need something like work-life balance because of certain things, like you have a family, you want to have time for them, and so on and so forth. And then at the same time, being prepared means also understanding the company. What are they doing? What is their focus? Where they're going? Why do they hire you? Maybe the more you know that, the better it is. Things like, okay, I can predict that they want me to start ASAP. Maybe they mentioned that. That is something that you can prepare. Is it possible for you to start, in next week or something? If you prepare that makes everything a little bit smoother. Maybe they want to certain skills additionally, especially that can obviously help in a negotiation where you say, you hire me for this role, but I also have these certain skills that I know you want. So that is good for my environment. And then sometimes it can be nice to know who you're negotiating with, what is their role, what is their position, what's their background. For example, you are a technical person, they're a technical person. It just creates a smoother conversation because you've come from the same mind and background and stuff like that. But also, if you understand, like a CEO has different needs and wants than a supervisor or recruiter and so on. So it can help sometimes to understand. So preparation is key. And it's important to take the time to prepare each contract negotiation, even if it's via email. because it helps you to understand the field that you're negotiating in. Next one is negotiation goals. This is something I also believe that I don't see very much basically, but it's actually key to define your own goals when you go into any negotiation basically. And it's basically to translate your needs into negotiation goals. So one of the things I highly recommend you to do if you go into a job negotiation, basically a contract negotiation, I would write down 3 negotiation goals. These are your main things. These are the things that you really, really want from this whole thing. So for example, goal number 1, it could be, okay, I want to have $98,000. That's the goal in terms of salary. Goal number 2 is I want to have 20 days paid holidays per year, for example. And goal number 3 is I want 2 days out of the week to work remote. So 3 days local, 2 days remote, whatever reason. And so that's basically in the mind when you go into negotiation to make sure that you get them out of that. And that will help you to guide you throughout the negotiation basically and help you to hopefully achieve that. But if you don't have the goals, how can you achieve that? Especially if you don't have them clarified and written down in front of you. That is very important. So having these goals in front of you on a piece of paper or somewhere is very, very important when you go into negotiation. While you have the goals, you also have to make sure that you have clear limits, and that's rule number 3. It's basically what are the non-negotiable, your walkaways a little bit, basically. So you can maybe say, okay, I looked at my expenses. That's why we did the preparation. I looked at the industry standards. I looked at my role standards, and I cannot accept anything under $90,000. Okay. That means you write that down because you did the preparation, you looked at your goals, and now you defined these are things that will not allow you to work well, that will not allow you to survive, maybe even, in London, LA or something where the prices are relatively high. And so you basically create this list. Let's say there's missing remote opportunities. Maybe you need either to work remote completely or you want to work a few days per week remote. And that's the thing that you write down. Maybe you have to relocate somewhere and you would like them to help you with that because there's cost, there's organization, there's time invited into that. So you find that very important. Maybe you cannot do any new contract that is less than 6 months because, for example, it is relocation. You don't want to move half the world for a 3 months contract. That could be, depending on your situation, if you uproot your family or something like that, that is maybe a non-negotiable. And so this is something like that. So defining all these goals and non-negotiables help you to kind of, during the conversation, understand where to push, how to push, and where you have to kind of say like, okay, this is going away from where I want to be, and understand if the contract is going the direction that you need. But it's basically understanding what you need, what you want, what's your minimum that will help you to negotiate, which is much, much easier than if you go into a negotiation and you don't have the clarity of numbers, of basically a breakdown of all these, what you want and what cannot happen, basically. So again, a negotiation is convincing someone else to give you what you want. Our goal must be linked to their success. A very common mistake in negotiation, but everyone asking something from someone is they only focus on themselves. So a lot of times you see people in negotiation, and even if they ask you as an email or LinkedIn, hey, can you help me? They often phrase it very much me, and I. And that is something that is basically very, very difficult to handle because at the end of the day, if you want something from someone else, you should always argue in their benefits, not in your benefits. So every argument must come from the benefits of the other side. Personal needs are why you argue, not why you should get it. So you should always think, okay, what do I need? And how can I convince the other side to give it to me? And the other side will give it to you if you offer something that sounds good to them. So for example, let's say you are asking for a higher salary, either in the first negotiation or in future negotiation after you work there. So explaining the need for a higher salary. A weak way, for example, would be to say something like, oh, I want more salary because I can't afford to live in London and I'm currently going into debt to live there. This is obviously understandable. If you are underpaid and you don't have enough money and salary to live in London, obviously that is a good reason to ask for more. But it is, in terms of the other side, it sounds like, why is this my problem? Kind of. So basically, even though that makes sense, it's still not a good argument for the other side because you accepted the original contract. Why is it now a need to rise the current contract, or why is it the need to rise that one? So that is maybe not the best way, even though it is from your needs path absolutely correct, but from their needs path, it's not very convincing. A better way, for example, would be my current salary is below the industry average for my role. That means I could go to another company and I will get it. So their argument is by raising your salary, they can keep you. Because if they don't raise your salary, you can leave and they lose you, which they don't want. So it is a better argument because you still get your higher salary, but you argue with your role and your opportunity of being hired someone else because it is lower than you should get, basically. Another way would be, maybe even stronger way, would be to literally look at how your value in the company is. So for example, over the past few months, my work has been excellent and I tackled a lot of issues outside of my area of expertise. And you name obviously examples and mention things that shows that you should get a higher salary because you outperform, you do a good job, and so on and so forth. And so basically, you get a higher salary because you do a better job than expected, than originally paid. You take more responsibilities and so on and so forth. So that is probably the best situation. Depending on the situation, you need to argue maybe differently. But the idea is, if you argue, make sure that you always argue of the benefits to the other side, not of your own needs. Because your own needs are your needs. The other side doesn't have to give you more money, give you a holiday or anything just because you need that. That's your problem, basically. If you want them to make you understand, you just have to say, okay, hey, I would like this because I'm doing this for you, basically. If you want to keep me because you're underpaying me, you have to rise it. If you like to appreciate my good work, you have to rise it, basically. So the way that you should always argue is, what is the benefit for the other side by doing this for you? Basically, if they give you more holidays, you do better work because you're more relaxed and so on and so forth. So anything about that should be, or you feel appreciated. They give you more holidays, you feel appreciated for your work, basically. So I give you a few examples that are maybe not contract negotiation related, but they're basically people asking for something and they trying to get you to do something for them, basically, which I would still consider negotiation. Because at the end of the day, they negotiate with you to do something for them, even though it's, in this case, a little bit more one-sided. So me, and I from strangers. So what happens sometimes is people ask me and other people as, here's my showreel, could you have a look and give me a feedback? Appreciate it. Even though there is things like I appreciate it or thank you or something in there, it's still very much on, hey, do work for me for free, here, stuff, thanks. And there's nothing in there that kind of gives the benefit to the other side. One of the ways that you can balance this out, obviously, to kind of give a little bit of an argument why you should do that is, for example, a compliment. I saw your great work, love what you do. I think you're just a fantastic fit. I would love to also go into your footsteps. Could you help me with understanding my showreel better, improve with that, blah, blah. So that is something where you give a little bit of a benefit and compliment to the other side, so they feel more enticed to help you because you gave them something in return for the help. We have a podcast talking about the effects would you join. Again, could be nice depending on the podcast. If it's like a big podcast, obviously everyone would probably join. If it's a very small podcast, maybe very specific, so why should I join? And so again, you have to convince the other side why this is good for them as well. I'd love to, for Pixar, could you give me any tips? If you ask someone from Pixar, so why should they spend time on answer that for you? And again, a compliment here goes a long way by giving them the benefit of raising them. I like to become a technical director. Can you give me tips how? This is a common email I get, for example. And again, same thing. It's basically someone just asks you, do something for me for free. And the big question is, okay, why should I? And it's very important when it's about negotiation. And basically, every time you ask someone to do something for you, you should always ask, what is the benefit for the other side? How can I phrase it? How can I explain it so the other side feels the need to do that? And again, it's always about, okay, if I ask them to help me for free, I at least have to give them a compliment, show appreciation, and so on. If I want the studio on the other side to raise my salary, to give me more holidays or something, I need to explain why this will benefit the studio, basically, not just me. Because why should they do it just out of their loveliness of their heart? I think that is always a very weak argument at the end of the day. And rule number 5 is negotiation. It's a very important thing to always see and understand that negotiations is about staying in negotiation, which means it's flowing. It's not just everything is set in stone, basically. So everything is a suggestion. If someone says, oh, I give you 50,000, it doesn't mean that's it. And you cannot talk about it. It means that's their offer. And if you say 90,000, that's your offer. And then you talk. So basically, it's very important that just because something was said doesn't automatically mean it's a set in stone and you cannot negotiate it more and find a common ground there. Second one, it's negotiations are always messy. So it's not all, even if you prepare negotiation, even if you prepare interview, it's always can end up, things happen, questions are like surprising, emotions maybe flail up and stuff like that. So it's not always perfect. So just be aware that not, even if you prepare negotiation, even if you have all these lists and goals and everything written down, it doesn't mean that everything will be smoothly. Maybe something happens and then you have to react and to be stay cool. A good way to also see how to approach negotiation if the need, which creates urgencies, versus the want and like, which are more like optional. So for example, I like 2 days remote per week as it's a long commute. You know, they talk about it. Hey, I would like to have in my contract 2 days of remote work because the commute is 1.5 hours to work. Like is not as strong word as I need 2 days remote per week as it's a long commute. Need sounds more a necessity. This is kind of a non-negotiable. And it often triggers a little bit, okay, this is something that's important to the other person versus like is nice to have, basically. Another thing very important to avoid is generally ultimatums, because it is negotiation. There is fluctuation between that. So avoiding something like it's either 90,000 or this conversation is over, basically in every variation of this sentence, that basically kills the negotiation, especially if the other side is not willing to do that. Obviously, you can go away if the kind of offer is not good, but in generally, it is very important to kind of look at this and say, I need 90,000. That's this industry standard, and this is what I'm worth, basically. And then the other side says, oh, we can only offer you 70,000, basically. And then you can say, okay, can we get higher for this? So on. And then also, okay, if I only get 70,000, can I only work 80% of the time or something? You know, there's a little bit of wiggle room. There's a little bit of discussion. Maybe at the end you go to 90,000 and you ask them, okay, why not 70,000? You know, is there a reason why you lower me below maybe the industry standard? And then they explain it to you, and you can explain why this is maybe not a good idea or whatever it is. Keep you cool. It's never personal, even though it sometimes feels like it. If someone says, you know, you ask for 90,000, they lowball you with 70,000. That's obviously not a nice feeling. It creates sometimes emotions and you really get upset. And so it's important that you always see this as, okay, whatever they say, it's a negotiation, so it can change. And I saw situations where someone said one thing and then you ended up on your thing anyways, because they had a misunderstanding, you had a misunderstanding, and so on. So just be aware that things can change over time. Also, always see a win-win situation. So if you can help the other side to feel good about hiring you, that's always a good idea, because then makes them, you know, more happy to be with you. And that basically means ask what the other side needs. Hey, is there anything I can do to make this better for you? Okay. I feel like 90,000 is a little bit high for you. Anything I can do to make this easier because it's a lot of money, obviously, or something like that. It depends a little bit on the negotiation. This is just more abstract at the moment. But understanding what the other side needs allows you to deliver that while still having your own goals. Maybe they are afraid of certain deadlines, and you're like, okay, let's say 90,000, and I'm open for overtime work or something like that once a week or something. So that for example can okay, that's good for us because we don't care about the 90,000, but we are afraid of maybe we cannot keep our deadlines, and so we need some overtime. And so boom, suddenly they're happy, you're happy, and so that's very, very important. I get asked, it's like, how can I improve my negotiation skills? These are nice rules and all, and I can try to follow them, but how can I improve over time? And so there's a few things I can suggest to you guys to how to improve negotiation skill as a skill, how to train it. So first thing, always negotiate. Everything is a negotiation. Every contract should be negotiated. If someone gives you a number, always negotiate higher. Just always. There is nothing wrong with asking for more. Asking is a question, and a question can be denied or accepted, basically. It doesn't automatically mean everything will be exploding just because you asked a question or made a suggestion, basically. So always negotiate and see everything as a negotiation. Your airline cancels your flight, and they give you only 50% or something, or they give you only like a small kind of coupon for the cancellation as a thank you or something. They're like, why is it so small? Can you give me a little bit more for canceling my flight and creating all these problems for me? Everything can be a potential negotiation. Or you want to cancel your subscription, and they give you like a 6 months cancellation time. And then you're like, hey, is it possible to cancel in 3 months because of this and this and this? So always see everything as a negotiation. Every time you handle other people, other companies, and so on, see it as an opportunity to negotiate, to ask for more, for better conditions, and that will help you to train, because everything is a negotiation. Everyday life is a negotiation, basically. Important, obviously, also in interviews, but presentations and negotiation is to reflect. Every time you have a contract negotiation or any kind of negotiation, it's good if you think about, okay, what did I do good and what was not so great and should be improved. The more you do it, the more you can learn for next time, and it becomes more of a reflex. Obviously, control your emotions. Like with everything that is about interaction, the more emotional you get, the more illogical you maybe get, and maybe you say things and accept things that are not in your best interest. Else, I would always recommend to practice either with professionals, or for example, I'm offering coaching and negotiation, or with just friends. Just negotiating in general and helps you a little bit to, like with interviews, to feel the practice in that. And I highly recommend you to this book. This is one of my favorites, probably the best book in negotiation, Never Split the Difference, by Chris Voss, who is a hostage negotiator at the FBI. And I think he has a lot of really great stuff about negotiation. And obviously, just reading the book will not make you a great negotiator, but it will open your eyes of certain small tips and tricks that you can use to help that. But the key of getting better in negotiation is to practice, to see every interaction where you want something from someone as a negotiation, and be aware that you're doing this and try to improve it every time. So let me summarize here. Being prepared in any negotiation is key, basically. So in contract negotiation, that means know your price. What is the price that you should be offered from the industry, from the company, from the role, from your personal value? The better you know this price, the better you can negotiate, because you know what are the limits and where should this whole negotiation go to. Prepare arguments. Why should you get delivered this price? If you ask for a higher salary, why should they give it to you? And always think about the benefits for the other side, not your own benefits. That will not convince anyone of your benefits at the end of the day. Stay always in negotiation mode. Again, sometimes it can be messy. Sometimes people ask or lowball you, and it feels like kind of hurts a little bit. It's just a suggestion. As long as it's not over, everything is negotiable. As long as you're still talking, everything can change, basically. So suggestions are not the same as demands. And that's also something you should avoid. never say something, this is the only thing I accept, this is my last thing, because it just triggers this situation where you move from negotiation to like maybe a hostage negotiation, basically more. Make sure to listen to the other side. Often you can ask or listen to what they need. And if you give them what they need, they will more likely give you what you need. So for example, if you want a certain amount of money, maybe they're more likely to give this money to you if you can reassure them about things that they're afraid of. Maybe, for example, hey, we're afraid that you leave early. Like, okay, let's give me the money that I'm asking for, and let's make the contract more stronger. So I have to stay at least 6 months or something, because you don't want me to leave after 3 months because of whatever. So that is very, very important. And that can sometimes help to like create this situation where everyone is happy and you have the win-win situation, which you always should try to have. Even the other side usually wants the win for you, because if you are unhappy, you do a bad job. If they're unhappy because of the contract was not valuable to them, then they will not keep you that long. If you're interested to find out more, I'm also offering application coaching, interview coaching, negotiation coaching. You can find them on alexanderrichter.com/application. And basically in the negotiation coaching, I will teach you the basics of it. We will do a mock-up negotiation, for example, to train that, because it is important to do it yourself, to get feedback on how you do. And I think the same thing as with interviews is doing things, recording yourself, and then talking about how it was, I think is the most important way of learning things like negotiation, because it's really about performance. It's like a presentation. You can only improve in your presentation if you do the presentation, if you talk about what happened in the presentation, what you can improve and what was good, and then redo it and become better at it at the end of the day. That is my presentation of contract negotiation. And again, my definition is much broader. We focus obviously on the contract side a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I believe negotiation is like presentation. Presentation, you show other people your point, basically, you present it to them. Negotiation is about convincing other people to do something for you. And obviously, in this case, it could be two people. But in general, sometimes if you ask someone like a favor, hey, can you look at my showreel? You kind of negotiate with them as well and try to convince them to do something for you. So the better you understand how to do that, the more success you will get in life, but also obviously in negotiation when it comes to your future jobs and your future contracts. Let's dive into the live Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or write them to the chat, and then we can address them. Can you expand on companies asking you salary expectations before any interviews?
So my question is that if it's like the chances of any further negotiation will be killed if you actually put your salary expectation beforehand, or you just, they will shut you down because it's too high. Like how that works in terms of like the hope for a better negotiation in an interview. That's my question.
Yes. So again, not every negotiation is obviously in person. Can be just an email. Can happen as well. So again, can you expand on companies asking your salary expectation before an interview? So at the end of the day, when you look at something, when we go back to the beginning of this whole, is being prepared and knowing your price is very, very important. So if this is your price, basically, then you should be, if they are not able to accept that, then I don't think that is maybe a company you want to work for, or would you be willing to accept a lower price than what you are like really research? So it's a big difference if you don't know your price and you're just guessing, like literally guessing, like, I don't know, like 100,000 or something. And it's much different if you know your price, you know the industry price, you know the company price for you, more or less. So the more you are closer to that, the more you can. One of the ways, by the way, how you can deal with it a little bit better, you can do a range. So for example, let's say they ask you for an expectation, you can say, let's say, between 75,000 and 90,000. And that can be the best or the most kind of balanced way to answer. It means, they're maybe hoping to get you at the lower point, you may be hoping to the higher point, but it's not a fixed number. So it's like, instantly gone. So I think that would be, and again, it should still be obviously researched well. So don't give numbers that you don't want. But that will create a little bit of a scope and will allow both parties, to not instantly say goodbye. But at the end of the day, if they're not willing to accept any number that is okay for you, you shouldn't, like, that's already, a waste of time to talk to someone who is not even willing to give you the minimum. Basically, you're non-negotiable at the end of the day. But I think the range would be the best answer here, is to, if they ask you something like this before the negotiation, do your research and then give a range, for example. And then in the negotiation, you can find the number that works for both sides at the end of the day. For the contract in terms of freelance, do you need a professional like an advocate, a lawyer? It depends. If it's a professional company, studio that, established or something, you can have a lawyer look at it if you feel there is a need. That is totally always possible. Personally, I rarely do that. I would definitely, read the contract, obviously, go through it. In the modern times of AI, you can also ask, hey, is this normal? Or can you explain this part to me, AI? That could be another way to go through that. So I think I think I would definitely start to be maybe a little bit more lawyerish and advocatish. The more it is maybe a new client or new partner, maybe it's a smaller studio or small environment. And depending on how big the contract is, if it's a very small contract, very short, obviously there is less need for anything. So it's a very hard question to answer because it depends on the situation. But I would definitely kind of try to understand it yourself. But if you feel like really the contract is too complex, there's maybe some hidden things in there. I would maybe think about at least doing that. And obviously it depends a little bit on the scope. If it's a 6 to 12 months contract, that sounds like a more bigger investment than if it's just a 2 weeks contract there. So can less happen and stuff like that. So very hard to answer the question. Obviously there comes costs with it, basically as well. So also that, but I would generally at least invest the time to understand the contract instead of, we'll be fine. And then just move on and then be surprised when they can fire you tomorrow. And that is something that you should avoid. But again, it comes back also to your goals and to your non-negotiables. Nothing in the contract should be against your goals or in the non-negotiables. Like, hey, they can fire you tomorrow, and that's and one of your non-negotiables is like, hey, I want to have at least 2 weeks cancellation period or something like that, and then that. So I would generally absolutely sure. Do it but just be aware that obviously it involves costs, extra time and stuff like that. And depending on your understanding of contracts and with the help of AI, I think you can already do a good job. But I would do it if you feel the need. And also when the contract is obviously more bigger and maybe the studio is less established, that could be more of a sign of like, let's check if they, have normal things in there basically.
Hi, Alexander.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Snehashish this side. Yep. So thanks. I personally want to thank you, first of all, because of sharing all the knowledge with us and for sharing your time. And I would like to, achieve your response to 2 things specifically. The first being, if you would kindly affirm this understanding of mine. And the second one is if you could answer one question of mine. May I proceed?
Sure.
Yeah, the thing is that from my understanding, it is the simple thing is to use very specific, simple languages while negotiating with the opponent party, whether be it during the phase of contract negotiation or during the job interview phase as well. And the thing is that we have to be very optimistic, right? With the proper mindset of having the right words and persuading the person in the right manner. And the second thing is that we have to be confident and to be well prepared. We need to go through the book that you just shared with us of Mr. Voss, Chris Voss, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and is my understanding correct, Alexander?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, negotiation is about understanding. If the other party doesn't understand your conditions or your needs, then it's hard for them to understand if they hire you what you get and on what you want. So it is obviously very important to be clear about that. And if the other side is not clear, you have to make sure to understand. So you ask for clarification. The better you are prepared, the easier you explain what you want. Oftentimes, the reason why you are confusing is because you don't really know what you want. You didn't thought about it. You didn't research it well. So your communication is all messed up. It's like a presentation. The less less you prepare, the worse is your presentation usually, especially if you don't have the skills to do it. So yeah, obviously you should always be prepared, and you obviously try to explain it as well as possible. And as you said, be positive to the other side, because at the end of the day, you both want to work together. So you cannot be like, oh, let me take as much money from them as I can, basically. But yeah, you should obviously at the same time, let me get as much out of this negotiation as possible, obviously, but also be aware of like, okay, how can I help them the most so they are willing to give me as much money as possible? Basically, it's a both-sided thing. And by like, if they can give you, let's say they give you the highest amount that you ask for, and you have to make them feel good about it by saying, hey, I will give you a good performance for that, basically, because I'm a top a skilled artist or technical person. And yeah, the book can help, obviously, but like every book, just because you read a book, you're not becoming a negotiation expert. It's more like an extra. At the end of the day, it's more about learning through like a regular situation, not only contract negotiation, but every situation where you convince someone is a mini negotiation. If you want to convince your Airbnb host to give you enter the property 5 hours earlier, that is negotiation. Because if you can enter the property at 3 p.m., but you would like to enter it at 11 or something like that, or 10,
that
is a negotiation, because you try to convince them something to give you extra time for what you normally should pay. And so that is a mini negotiation. And by using the tactics that we have, for example, by asking friendly, by showing respect, for example, it's obviously more likely that they give it to you when you say like, oh, I'm coming 5 hours earlier. That's it. Versus, hey, I'm early. Would it be possible for me to, because their motivation is to make you happy. Because if you're happy, you maybe come back, you give good reviews and so on. So by being respectful and nice, you basically negotiated your way into 5 hour longer property access without extra money, which is great. And so if you do something like this, you become better. And if you go into a more complex negotiation like a contract, it will be much easier, because you constantly negotiated small things here and there, basically,
Thank you so much. And just one question.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if I'm applying for an abroad job, say, for example, I just went through my research mode that this is the offering that I usually get from the company as an fresher. Will that be the equal case for every candidate who is applying for the job, or is it specific to the ones that are from that specific location and are applying for the on-site role, or maybe the remote role? Or is it different for other people who are coming based out of, say, for example, outsourcing based job? For example, I'm applying from India for a job that is based out of US. And the parity, does the parity remains all the same for the US based employers, or does it differ from place to place?
I'm just trying to understand. Do you mean if you get a different contract as an Indian coming to US versus another American coming to the company, or what do you mean with that?
Right. Exactly. That's
so basically, like because you come from a lower income country, they will give you a lower income contract. Is that the logic here?
Yeah. I was just wondering whether this is the right way of thinking, or maybe it's entirely different based on your
I
personal
mean, does
experience
it
or
matter
information?
at the end of the day? And I think that is the important part. Does it matter to you?
Actually, just to know beforehand what would be the right kind of price that I would have an information based on, so that I may
The
kind of
right price is the price that you researched. Anything,
right.
any different behavior to you or something, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It should not matter. Because at the end of the day, in theory, every person could be treated differently, independent of everything. Like every person can be treated different because of environment, of background, of necessity. You know, maybe some artist who has the same job as you gets 10% more than you because they are more needed at half a year later. They get maybe 10% more because they have a little bit better experience than you, even though they get the same job, but they have more background in higher. So I usually will never think about what people get in terms of I don't know, fairness or something. What your job is, figure out what you should get and what you need to get. So this is the two things. First thing, what do you need? That means what is your minimum amount to be okay? Meaning expenses, flat, everything. You know, like survival. You always have to get at least at the end of the month you are at minimum zero. That's the minimum amount. Like if you're not zero, this is not a job. This is you pay for that basically. They've experienced. So that's the first thing. So if that is okay for you, first thing, this is a job that provides for your living, for your family, for yourself. That's great. That is the first step. Second step is, okay, what is the industry standard? And then third step, what is the company standard for my role? It's obviously harder to find out what exactly they pay, but you can sometimes. You reach out on LinkedIn, you connect with a lead or someone with the same role. Maybe you have some friends that work at this company and you ask, hey, how much around, like a range, or how much you get? You know, maybe you don't have to say your number, but say me, like, you know, and then someone says, oh, between 80 and 90,000. Okay, for a mid-level as I am, I get 80 to 90,000. Good to know. This is where I'm walking the line now. And so that is how I would approach this a little bit, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to see things, right? Thank you so much again for the answer, Alexander. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Sorry, my question is that negotiation isn't always about a salary. Sometimes it's about the position itself. For example, I want to convince a hiring manager for a role. How can I frame a message to encourage them to get on a call?
So can you give an example? You want to raise from like mid to senior, or what do you want to change?
Yeah, for example, I want to convince an hiring manager to consider me for an VFX producer role, for example. Okay. And how I can frame a message that encourages them to get on a call. So I can reach out them. It can be a mail or a LinkedIn. I think the LinkedIn is...
And what would be the conflict? What do they want you to hire instead? Like, because you want to increase something. What is the previous offer then?
There's no any offer because there is an opening in the company. I want to pitch myself. I'm a good for that position.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you maybe want to increase your rank, but you just want to. So again, try to understand. So do you want to switch careers, or what exactly is the situation?
No, I don't want to. It's not about switching a career. It's about, I'm in the same career. I'm in the VFX industry itself. And I want to move from, let's say, for example, production manager role to a producer role.
Okay. So there's a few ways that you can, and again, you always have to think about the other side. How can the other side feel this is a good idea, basically, you know? So you should never come it from I want, I need, this is from me. It's more like figure out what could be the problem, why the other side could be hesitant. In your case, for example, they are hesitant maybe because they are not sure you can do the job. That's the simple answer. This is not the job that you trained. This is not the job that you do. So asking them to move you up and give you a role that you are not trained and maybe don't have the background in full. Some of it's sure, but not, you know, it's like asking, hey, I'm a senior, I want to become a supervisor in my next thing. It's like, yeah, but you don't have the credential for supervising. Obviously, we all have to go sometime somewhere, but it's always this like, how can I remove the doubts of doing that? And so that is a big question that you need to answer yourself, basically, or ask them. It's like, okay, what are the doubts here if they are hesitant about that? And one way you can remove doubts is you create a testing period, for example. Let's do a 3 months testing period, and let's come back in 3 months and talk about it. Let's keep my salary the same, but I get this new role, and in 3 months we will come back, and if everything is all right, I will get my new salary and my new role, basically. And that's basically one way of removing the doubts by giving, hey, let's do a trial. If I perform, you're happy, I'm happy, and then I can move into the new role, and you don't have any fears because there's nothing you can lose. If I don't perform, you didn't pay. Let's say you didn't pay me maybe extra or whatever, or you pay me extra, but you can downsize me after that because it didn't work and it was negotiated clearly beforehand. So there's not much loss for you by giving me this opportunity. So you give me an opportunity, but if it doesn't work out, we can reverse it, for example. And there's less pain and transformation going on here. So that is one way you can do it, is basically understand what is the hesitation from the other side and figure out how you can change that. For example, you can also say, okay, I would like to have this role, and they're like, oh, we are not sure if you can do it, or whatever they say. And you can say, okay, let's take the next project as an example. I will perform my normal role, but you will also see how I am in doing in general. And if you see me doing well, I think I'm ready also to do in the next project the other one. And we should make this in writing. Don't just take words for it. Everything is a little bit make sure that there is a clear, we come back to this in 3-6 months. Let's write it down. But that is the thing. It's like address the problems and the needs of the other side, basically, and make them as easy as possible to accept your offer. So if they have like hesitations, find out what's the problem and try to figure out a solution to make the hesitation be smaller. And the moment they're small enough, they will be accepting it, basically.
But there's always a first step. So I should convince them to get on a call first. I mean, online call, virtual call. It can be Meet or Zoom. So how should I approach them to get on the call? Because right now I can just message. Sometimes they accept, sometimes they deny. What should I tell them to accept my call? First thing, then all the process are done. Yeah, that's like a quick, easy. I can explain everything during the call. But to get them on the call, that is the one trickiest thing.
How can I accept them on the call? It sounds like a marketing thing, like a cold call thing, because it's a little bit before negotiation. Obviously, you can do this. You have to follow the same rule as we talked about when it's about these examples that I mentioned, which I constantly get. Is people ask you to do something for them here? Why should I? Why should I go to call for you? Is always the question. So you have to mention something that makes them interested in taking your call, basically. So you have to think again, what's their need? And you need to figure that out. That can be very difficult. It's not like easy, but if you deliver on the need of the other side, they will 100% join. People join, for example, if you have a non-important podcast, someone like, I don't know, a famous visual effects artist will not join your podcast if you are nobody and your podcast, no one's watching it. If you have a famous podcast, people will join just because it's a appreciation to join. It's an honor to join. Like you are honored to have them. They are honored that you are bringing them in because you have great guests and they love. But if you don't have that, then you have to approach it with a lot of respect and with a lot of, this is the benefit for you if you join my podcast. This is like, for example, one way of doing this, again, I'm not familiar with your situation. It's a little bit hard to say specifically, but specifically in situations like this, it's always important to be very respectful and to write in a way that you You show knowledge about the studio, understanding about the studio, and maybe like a compliment about what they do. It's always a good start. It's like, hey, love your studio. I specifically love this project that you worked on. I found this was great. I'm a producer. I would love to work with you on this. And I think working with me, you will see that. So you need to kind of do a small pitch of where you compliment the site, you show that you understand what they do, and you find something that you can offer them as like, hey, I believe I can help you the next project to be better, blah, 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 blah. So this, again, it's a little bit tricky. I'm not 100% sure about your situation, so you have to figure that out. But that is a little bit the way you should do it. Like you have to think about what do they need, and so they are interested to get in your call with you because you could potentially deliver this need, basically. This is tricky. Like it's always tricky. It's not easy. If it would be easy, everyone would be doing it. But again, I think the simplest situation, the best comparison is, let's say you open a new podcast and you would like to invite a famous supervisor in your country to join your podcast. This will be tricky because you don't have any reputation, you don't have any background, you maybe don't even really exist at the moment. So what can you do? So the first thing you need to do is, depending on how big the person is, maybe you should start with a few smaller guests to build like a reputation for yourself. And then after a while, you reach out to that person and say, hey, I have a podcast. I have already 10 episodes, and you compliment that person about his achievements, and you show them that you care, and you show them that you would love and appreciate being part of the podcast. I think these two elements are important. Showing that you have something to offer and showing that you understand and respect the other side and would love to work with them is probably it's not guaranteed, but it's probably better than, hey, I have a podcast, join me. Will not work with most people if you're not Joe Rogan or something like that.
Basically, it's about showing up our expertise and our knowledge. So how this aligns with their mission and mission.
Yes. I mean, again, that is the most important thing. If you are asking them for something, so you have to show them why they should care, basically. And that, again, it can be tricky. It's not easy, but it is also always possible. And sometimes it means maybe you have to reach out to a few people on LinkedIn or wherever your best contact is and talk to other people, to artists and something to figure things out. And it's like, oh, do you know what they need maybe, or do you know what's a big problem in the studio that I can maybe help with or something? I don't know. It depends a little bit on the situation, but that is the thing. And people who have this skill to figure this out are the most successful, obviously. And so it's a lot of work. If you'd want to do something like this, if you're asking above your pay grade, basically, you have to do triple amount of work. Basically, it's always the same. The more you want, the more you have to work for it. At the end of the day, I mean, in this case, research well.
Yeah, I was asking that. Do you have any training sessions for this, especially for negotiation part?
Yes, you can find it on my website. Let me go there. Application. I can send it here. I teach all job negotiation, including interview, contract negotiation, but also your application process, resumes and showreels and stuff like that. So you can find it there, and we can do a mock-up negotiation, for example. We will record this and then talk about it and figure out, okay, what was good, what was bad. Oftentimes, most people are very bad in negotiation and interviews. And it's all about if you are okay, that's often a big win. Because often people don't even recognize that they do like this all the time, where they're talking, or they constantly don't know what they ask for and stuff like that. And if we can reduce this to a normal level, oftentimes you rise your success like double or triple or whatever, because it's often that you come off maybe as not really flowing and confident and clear. As we just talked about, and that can really help. Yeah, so if you're interested, just check out the website here, alexanderrichtertd.com/application. And then there are all free things of application, interview coaching, and negotiation coaching. You can have it as a package or just negotiation coaching if that's the one that you would like to do. But I also offer mentoring if you like something more like career-wise. If you want to change your career, we can do a mentoring where we meet every 2 weeks, and then I can help you. That you can also find it in the VFX career section. There's like a mentoring part.
I will do, Alex. Thank you so much.
Awesome. First question by Rakesh. How do you negotiate the iterations after feedback, a fixed price or per iteration, and the amount of work I have to put? So it is about if you're a freelancer and you do reviews where you kind of deliver something, they do a review, and then if you get paid for a fix or not. Is that what we're talking about here? Okay, so this is a discussion we actually also had in our VFX future, where a lot of the changes are not included in the contract, where basically like, hey, if you have a studio and you do something for the big studio production houses, all changes are for free. So this is not. So usually what you should do is usually you include a review process into the normal contract, which you should include into your price. So usually most freelancers, as far as I know, they have one review phase, like, hey, at the end of the process, I will give it to you. You will mention, you have one review for free, basically, which also means maybe you have to define what that review means. Maybe you say, okay, one review, and that means like 3 extra hours or whatever. So make sure that the review is clear, what that means. Your extra work is clear, and that should be included in the package price. So if they don't have anything to criticize, great, you get more extra money. If they have criticized, it should be clear how much they can critique. They cannot just critique, oh, you have to change everything and you have to double work. That cannot be true. That has to be limited in the contract originally already. So it has to be clear, like, hey, after I deliver, we can have a review call and I can do certain smaller changes. Great. You have to define what smaller changes means. I can change the font, but I cannot change the image. Okay, nice. And then if you want to have more changes, if you want to have that could be an extra contract or extra costs that will come. And that's something you should usually mention in the negotiation in the beginning, is like, hey, with this contract, there is a small review and fixes that I will provide automatically for free. But if it's more, then this will be an extra, basically overtime costs that should be. And that I think that is always important to negotiate in the beginning very clearly. So when you get to it and they say, oh, I want all these changes, you can say, okay, if I should deliver these changes as we talked in the beginning, as it's noted in the contract, you need to pay extra. Do you want the changes? If they say yes, you do it and they pay. If they say no, then that's it. If you guys are interested in generally to have more information, and also in the future of the TD meetups you would like to join and to know, you can also subscribe to my newsletter, alexanderrichter.com/newsletter. And there we have regularly kind of emails talking about different things, including negotiations, but TD and visual effects and so on. And we will notify you of our monthly TD meetup. So this event is monthly. Next one will be in June. We will talk about smart financial artists. We talk about how to deal a little bit better with money. This is an exceptional topic because we do it mostly because at the moment it's a little bit of a financial and job difficulty. So we want to address this. In the future, we will go more back to a little bit technical artist, technical director topics. But this is also part of everything. It doesn't matter what job you are. You need to look at your finances. You need to look at negotiation. So we include this as well. So that's why I also offer it as a coaching, because it is important to be a complete rounded artist, not just to be great in your skills, but to be great in achieving good contracts and having good interviews, having good applications, so you get better job opportunities, basically.
As you know that VFX industry is facing like really hard time, but right now there's the skills to improve. What skills do you advise that production, like visual effects production team, can
I mean, I always say the best skill in any industry is a problem solver. Being a problem solver, it doesn't matter even if as a producer, a problem solver is someone who looks at things and finds ways to solve them. Everything is a problem. There are artistic problems, there are organization problems, there are technical problems. And the more you are a problem solver, you literally like look at things and they're fixed after you look at them. That means it's a very, very good skill. I think the best way to learn this skill is obviously solving problems, but also to be a little bit more technical. One of the reasons I love to recommend everyone to learn Python is Python teaches you problem solving and logical thinking, for example. If you learn scripting, you learn how to break a problem into code and then write the code to solve the problem. So I highly recommend everyone to have a little bit of a technical element. You don't have to become a technical director, but maybe a technical artist. You can still be an artist, you can still do art, you can still be a producer, you can still do production. But if you know how, for example, to do some simple Python scripts, awesome. Not only do you start to think more logically and be a better problem solver, you also can support your team with simple things to help them to make their lives easier and faster. And so I think that is a very valuable skill, is to raise you a little bit more in a technical environment, because visual effects, animation, and games is a very technical field. It's not painting. It's really, we work in highly complex software. Even Shotgun or Flow now, Autodesk Flow is a very complex software. And all these processes inside that is relatively complex to understand and often need a lot of tools to deal with. Even producers often use a bunch of software and internal tools to deal with all this complexity. So the more you can able to help other people, the more you can able to solve problems, the more you can able to solve problems with scripting, for example, on every level, the more you are valuable, and the more you have a stable job, you're more likely to be hired for longer periods of time, and so on, basically. So that is my recommendation, to rise a little bit into the technical fields, even though you can stay being a producer, being an artist, but it's a good secondary skill that will lift you up in general everywhere.
That's a great, like Python and plus AI, like any AI tool, like I can integrate within Python so that I can accelerate my learning.
Yes, this is something we recently added to the course material. I would recommend to look at GitHub Copilot, which is an AI tool for coding with Python. And this is, for example, a course that we recently added. You can find it here, Python Copilot. And this is where we teach you basically how can you write Python code with GitHub Copilot, with this an AI coding assistant. This is an intermediate level, so you should know the basics of coding. You should never use AI for a beginner anywhere. It doesn't matter what you do, never use AI as a beginner. It's especially not for work. If you want to use it to understand something, that's okay. But because you will not understand at a certain level and you get really confused, because if you rely on something without having knowledge, you're basically a slave to that machine of helping you or not. So it is something that I would recommend if you have a beginner level understanding, a intermediate level understanding of Python. I would highly recommend you to look something like GitHub Copilot. And for example, you can join our course and then learn that there as well, how to deal with it better, basically.
So first I'll go with the basics, then I will integrate AI. Thanks for that.
Yes. And for example, we have everything under the sun. So whoever you are, you will find probably something in our courses. Python for VFX, we have Python for Maya, Python for Max, Python for Houdini, Nuke, and then we obviously have intermediate courses for Python Advanced and Python Copilot. So whoever you are, you probably find the software that is most used for you. And again, even if you're a producer and you work a lot with animators, for example, you probably will need Python for Maya. If you are a producer, you work more with FX, you probably need Python for Houdini. But even a producer can benefit from certain skills like this, because again, it happens that someone gives you tools you have to use. the better you understand them, the better you are. You can help the team by writing tools like this and so on and so forth. So in every direction, I think it helps you to become a more valuable member of the team, basically. And AI is a good tool, but again, as I mentioned in previous iterations, you have to be good, so the AI is good. If you are bad, the AI will not help you that much. Especially not on a professional level. There's a big difference of using AI to, figure out small things at home. It's much different to using AI to work professionally, which means the level is very high. And so you should be good at your job and then use AI to be better and faster with whatever you do. That is my recommendation at the moment.
Thanks.
Just to summarize a little bit, it's important to learn negotiation as a skill. Obviously, the very important one is contract negotiation. Every time you went through the interview process and just before you go into the job you go into the contract negotiation. It sometimes can be an email. It sometimes can be a conversation. Sometimes it's after a few months in the job, you want to be raised, promoted, higher salary. And it's important to learn the basics, be prepared, basically. And one way you can see this as everything in life is a negotiation. Every time you ask someone to do something for you by asking for a discount, it's a negotiation. By asking to get what you deserve, it's a negotiation. By asking to get earlier into your Airbnb is actually a negotiation. You convince someone to do something for you. That are all opportunities to train your negotiation skills, basically, and to become better, to be aware of that you are, hey, I'm asking you something. How can I convince you to give me that? How can I convince you to give me this job? How can I convince you to join my podcast? How can I convince you to, get me something for free or come earlier to my event or whatever? Because I need to convince you to do something for me. And you always have to approach it in a way of like, hey, what is the benefit for you doing this for me? And that is something if you find that out, that's always a benefit thing. And if you do that, you feel more confident in the negotiation process when you dive into a contract negotiation, because you learned to communicate well in this. If you're interested, you're welcome to visit my website. We teach different things, including job application and contract negotiation coaching, but it's also very valuable in general to join any negotiation with important skills, like, for example, Python, for example. Being more technical is generally a better environment for negotiation because people are more willing to give you more opportunities in technical field. This could be also a way to rise your negotiation level, basically, at the end of the day. But it's important to, always make sure, if you are in negotiation, always ask. Never felt afraid of asking. Asking will never end the negotiation. Just because you ask for a certain amount, hey, I need this amount, I need a remote opportunities, I need a certain amount of holidays, doesn't automatically will end the negotiation. The more you do that, the more there is a chance that you actually get for it. If you don't ask, you don't get. And that's the important part. As long as you ask, and if you just imply that is something that you would need, it's always a possibility that the other side will accept. But if you don't ask, there is no possibility the other side will accept something that you never asked before.
I welcome you to join us live and also watch the previous episodes, and I'll see you on our next TT Meetup.